How crazy are these car payments getting? Just look around. With the average transaction price tipping the scales around $50,000 for a vehicle, you quickly run the math, and it not very hard to figure out that the average person now is paying $800 a month for a car payment, and about 1 in 5 people, unfortunately, is paying over $1,000 a month. And that's in US. See, here in Canada, it's even much more grim. The fact remains is at 50 grand, and the exchange rate, of course, means that most Canadians are paying more like $1,200 to $1,500 a month, especially if they're buying any kind of SUV or any kind of pickup truck. People simply are overextending themselves. How crazy can this get? I mean, we're seeing the banks offer up money to just about anybody who's willing, and basically with a heartbeat in a hole, is willing to get a car loan. And the banks are like, here's the cash, take it all. As long as there's a reasonable chance that they might actually get recompensated. They might actually recoup their lendings. See, people are looking at this and saying, you know what, we only live once. I worked really hard for my money. You know what? I deserve this. You know, I've been driving beaters all my life. I finally deserve to treat myself. And so these are common themes that I hear across the board. A lot of people that I speak to that finally buy that new vehicle, that new truck, are finally justifying it in a way that looks something like getting over their head, but doing it because, you know what, we're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time. So let's make it count. Other people are saying, you can't take it with you when you go. And there's other people saying, the more toys that you have when you die, the better off you'll be. That's a person that wins. So these are all some realities, and you know, in today's society, more and more people are looking at the fact of the inability to afford to buy a new home. Many people are now saying, look, you know what, I'm never going to afford a home. I don't have enough money to consistently go on vacations, but you know what? The one little pleasure I have in life might look like a new vehicle, because at least that I can use every day and I can enjoy it. But this is all supported by banks. Banks are allowing it to happen. Banks are willing to lend it to anybody. So banks have been a big advocate. But what's happening with the car industry as a whole, with the increased complexity? I mean, a lot of you know, and you reach out to me, and there's a lot of passionate people, shall we say, passion for the fact that the car prices are going through the roof, passion for the fact that cars appear to be getting less reliable, or certainly packed a lot more with technology, packed a lot more with plastic. And quite honestly, most vehicles are filled very modular. Engines are modular. A lot of electronics that go into these vehicles are more modular. So there's all kinds of argument to say, why are these vehicles going up in price when the cost to build them is going down? Well, there is some backing to say that prices are going up to manufacture these vehicles. But by and large, it's not specifically because of the cheapness, the plastic, the extruded plastic, or the Presto plastic parts that go in, and the snap together fittings. Those are all cost-cutting measures. See, where unfortunately inflation takes a toll on you and I, it unfortunately takes a toll on these organizations. Supply chain is hitting them hard. Supply chain to get some of these parts that aren't utilized or built in-house, parts that are coming from overseas, maybe Europe, South America, in Asia. Different places are now subject to different laws and rates and charges due to things like tariffs. And so there's a lot of people now that are trying to say these vehicles should be cheaper because they're built cheaper. There's less quality, there's less metal, there's more plastic. And you'd be right. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons these vehicles should be cheaper. Because when you look around and you listen to modern vehicles and you just grab handles and you hit the plastic parts in there, it's no shortage of plastic parts that feel like they're about to snap off in your hands. And it does not inspire a lot of confidence. Let's be honest. A lot of vehicles today just feel like junk. Now, there's a lot of good quality out there, but we are seeing brands that once were known for high levels of reliability and quality, material and handling and the design and fit and finish, and cars that could last 300,000 miles like Toyotas, and even they're struggling and sort of spinning their wheels in the mud a little bit. There is some reality here, though. What we're seeing now is people are a little bit scared to buy new cars, but they're doing so anyway, and a lot of people are still spending the hard-earned dollars on new cars. And why are they doing that? there seems to be this fluctuation of new cars versus used cars versus none at all. And a big reason why, after doing a lot of the research I've done, a big reason why people elect to buy new cars, and a lot of us beg the question, why? Why are people buying new cars when the quality's junk, the prices are high, people can't afford them, but yet they continue to buy these new cars and get into these massive car payments? Well, there's a reality, and it's just what I said. The lack of trust in the brands, the lack of the quality, the fact that people don't trust vehicles to hold on to them for 10 or 15 years anymore means that people are only driving vehicles these days 2.5, 3.5 years and electing to just say bye-bye. So they need to replace it with something else, and they go and buy a brand new vehicle. Hence this cycle of new car ownership just goes round and round and round, hence bringing us to a point where people continue buying these new cars. But how does the market react to that? How do the OEMs respond to that buyer sentiment of low trust and dumping a car at 3 years so they can avoid any kind of out of warranty repairs? Well, they create these new flashy cars, because most buyers who like to hold on to their cars for a long period of time, those buyers that quite often will drive older trucks and cars like me, will look at that and say, you know what, if it's simple, I can fix it. If parts are available, I'm going to continue fixing this as long as I can. But those buyers, we've already said, we know, recognize those specific buyers that trust the warranty process more, that trust the idea of having something newer, because they don't have the DIY skills and they're not willing to take on expensive repairs. They continue to buy these new vehicles. So what ends up happening is these new vehicle sales continue to rise. But this is just the fact, the reality of what's going on in the market. People continue to buy this new stuff. New stuff goes up, it continues rising in prices, and people are okay with that, as long as the resulting response by the manufacturer is increasing warranty. See, because if they're relying on the warranty period to get them through until they can afford to buy a new vehicle, then they're happy. That's all it takes. Most people actually these days already plan to spend $1,000 a month. They budget $1,000 a month. And even if they can't afford it, we're seeing those car notes are getting defaulted. There's a lot of people saying, you know what, they're getting into it 2-3 years later, something changes, all of a sudden they can't afford to make the payments and they default. Hence the increase in repo payments, or the repos. This is happening at an alarming rate too. But unfortunately, even with these staggering statistics of repossessions and these staggering statistics of people paying $1,500 a month for a new pickup truck, or these staggering numbers of defaults and increase in interest rates, people continue to buy. So manufacturers, what do? They start looking at things like Ram did this year. They start saying, look, why don't we just increase our warranty period, or at least what is perceived as a warranty period? See, a lot of people get into this false sense of security and believe warranties are the goods. Warranties are going to cover your butt no matter what happens. But that's not always the case. You see, there's always exclusions, and it always comes down to major component warranties, or, non-wear items. And there's always these conversations about little exclusions that prevent you from totally capitalizing on a failure. But instead, what happens is people buy it under the pretense or assumption that the warranty is going to cover them, and they buy a new Ram because allegedly the new warranty is going to cover the drivetrain up to 10 years. Now, is this warranty in fact legit? Time will tell, and that's been just a very recent response by Ram top leadership that said, you know what, we're going to release a higher level of warranty because truck owners want to keep their trucks longer. And they also want to know that they have a truck that will last longer. See, because to this point, most people just know that 3 years is sort of that benchmark, and then basically got to turf the truck. What's going to happen when the entire market follows suit? And is the entire market going to follow suit? Are warranties going to change the way people buy cars? Is this the first step that Ram is now saying, you know what, we're going to give you a 10-year warranty? Are you going to see that now follow suit by I mean, we've seen Hyundais and Kias with their engine warranties because of their catastrophic engine failures. But are you going to start seeing more of that, like Fords? You're going to see more of that from other manufacturers, like even Toyotas, maybe the imports, Nissans, Hondas. And is that going to start moving into the more mainstream components rather than just saying, okay, the drivetrains? Because now people also recognize that these big screens, these flashy screens that people get dazzled by in the showroom and then realize it's all noise and smoke and mirrors later on, they also realize that some of those parts fail and 3, 4, 5 grand later you have to replace a module. So there's going to be a bigger conversation about warranty as time goes on. And as that time goes on, people are going to start to continue get on the wagon, and banks are going to start extending these loan periods and make them longer. And I mean, we're starting to see that. I mean, there was a time when I would laugh if you said you can get a car loan for 8 years. That's absolutely ludicrous. But now things like 96 months, 84 months, 72 months are not uncommon. As a matter of fact, a small percentage of the population taking out car loans are taking out loans less than 6 years. People that are taking car loans for 4 years equates to something like 12% of the car loans out there. People that are taking 5-year car loans are only about 18%. The vast majority of people taking car loans are still taking them 6 years and beyond. Why is that? Because the sheer craziness of these car prices in the car market. See, unfortunately, what we're seeing is people don't make the money that they used to. I mean, sure, we get raises. People get the raises. You know, you get your 2-3% year over year. But inflation's more like 3 to 5%, 7% year over year. And unfortunately, if anything tells us what we already know, if you scale back and you do the inflation calculation, go online, check the US inflation calculator. You can put in any numbers you want. But I've done that already. And if you go back to 2019, that's only 6 years ago, and you check that calculation increase that inflationary increase from 2019, and you look to 2025, it's gone up by 35% year over year. Well, not year over year, a total inflationary increase. But your wages have only gone up maybe about 12%. And the average food increase and inflation and the rest of cost of living increases might have gone up 25%, 30%, 40% in some places for some food. I've seen places that have gone up 50%, but cars seem to have gone up 40, 45%. So there's sort of some of the leading instigators, if you will, on increased costs. The worst part is people are still buying. They're buying because the manufacturers find new and creative ways to get people in the door. Fast talking, interest rates, reduced interest rates, all kinds of different throw-ins. They'll throw in little extras and widgets, and they run the numbers to make things look appetizing for the buyer, especially at the year end and holiday season. We know those are numbers and where they really push the numbers and crunch the numbers. The fact is, there's always new creative tactics, including being in cahoots with the banks to extend the long loan terms. So now, instead of you getting on board with a $500 a month car payment, that would only last for 4 years, and that was like, say, 10 years ago. Now these creative car manufacturers are saying, well, what's your budget? And they're saying, look, we can get you into a car payment for $400, $500 a month. Wow, really? And people are excited by that. And guess what? Some of these new fandangled charges, these new fandangled warranty periods that we're already hearing about, RAM and some of the others, are also selling features. So now people are saying, okay, banks are going to lend me the money. I qualify for this. The manufacturers are offering up a 10-year warranty. I feel totally fine in taking a longer loan term. So now you have the banks, manufacturers, and everybody enabling buyers to continue buying these more expensive vehicles, even when they realistically can't afford to. But this is just what's going on. This is what's going on with these crazy car payments. People are willing to take on that $800 a month, $1,000 a month. I've seen $2,000 a month truck payments. But people do that when they make $5,000 a month. from a salary, and then they say, well, you know what, I have a $2,000 a month mortgage. I can buy that nice new loaded up Yukon for $2,000 a month. Okay, that still leaves me $1,000 for food and utilities, and now that leaves me a couple $100. But guess what, folks? Crap happens. You know, unexplained, or, you know, a bad problem with the vehicle creeps in there. Maybe a set of tires you finally wear out because that's not covered under warranty. Maybe medical expenses comes up, or some other expense just unexpectedly rolls out there. Next thing you know, you're unable to make that payment. Hence, all this enabling going on by the banks and manufacturers has the excitement of the buyers, but nobody's saving their butt when it comes time to make that third missed payment. Sure, you can beg for forgiveness, and it's funny when you go talk to banks. I was in the bank the other day talking about investments and other financial discussions not related to cars. But there was the conversation about this forgiveness, these missed payments. That's all incorporated in part of your contracts when you're taking out money or borrowing money from the bank. That's all part of the conversation now. It's in the contracts about, you know, becoming forgiven by the banks for X amount of payments. And this is something that they're all incorporating because people are defaulting. People are having to call the bank up and say, I can't make the payment this month. Maybe next month I'll double down, I'll try to do my best. And so this is a conversation many people are now having with the banks and their lending institutions to say that they're gonna have to skip this month's payment and catch you next month. But it's these big car payments, and it's car payments that I've never seen in my life at $1,500 a month. I can't believe it. My first house, I was only paying $700 a month for my mortgage payments, and it was a decent home. But now here we are in stark contrast that people are making these massive car payments, and it's absolutely staggering the kind of payments that people are making. So the real question becomes, when does this trend end, and how does it end? What does this actually look like? I mean, are we going to finally get back to a place where manufacturers find that new way, that new hack, if you will, to make vehicles much more affordably and then pass those savings down to the buyer and the consumer? Time will tell, right? But again, as always, everybody, be sure to share this with your friends. It's something to think about, because if you're thinking about buying a new car, just seriously think again. Can you afford it? Be very, very conservative is what I'd say. With the fact that AI taking jobs and people simply just don't have the money that they think they have, some unexpected expense comes up and they literally have to default. So this is a real conversation. Do you need to buy that car right away, or can you continue driving your old jalopy like this? I'd like to, anyway, be sure to share, like, and again, subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you all real soon, everybody. Have an absolute glorious day. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.